Namaste, friends. Welcome to the latest episode of Authors and Books. And today we have with us author Gaurang Damani ji, and we'll be talking about his two latest wonderful books. I must show the audience. These are the two books, Untold Story of Ramayana and Mahabharata, A Word War. Gaurang ji is an electronics engineer, and he has read many scriptures. That's his interest, and he gives regular talks on Ramayana. And his first book, Essence of the Fifth Veda, that was inaugurated by the trustee of the Sri Ram Janmabhoomi Temple Trust of Ayodhya, Param Pujniya Govind Dev Giri Maharaj. So, Gaurang ji, if we talk about the untold story of Ramayana, as the name suggests, it goes beyond what we have seen, heard, or know about the life and times of Sri Ram. Besides the story, this book, I think it explores more than 300 geographical sites that are related to Ramayana, and also explore the spiritual essence of the happenings that are lesser known or not known. And if we talk about Mahabharata, A Word War, I think it's besides history, this book explores the geographical and spiritual essence of expansion of Bharat. So, Gaurang ji, I'll be starting with my first question. Ramayana has approximately 48 to 300 versions, and in different languages it is written. So, what prompted you into writing Ramayana, and especially the not Ramayana, the untold stories?
Okay.
So,
First of all, I would like to thank you for having me here, Dr. Vinay. And to answer your question, the inspiration was the word mythology. So it has become so colloquial that most people unknowingly use the word mythology for our history. And our history is not mythology, which comes from the word myth or mithya. So I started exploring the scripture, and I realized that the geography which Valmiki ji has explained in Valmiki Ramayana exists even today in present day Bharat and beyond. And also the other aspect which I discovered was when I was reading the other scriptures, like let's say Skand Puran, Bhagavad Puran, or other such scriptures, I realized that there are obviously all our scriptures refer to Ramayana because it's one of the most important foundation of our culture. So the other scriptures also refer to Ramayana, and the story gels or merges very well with the basic narration of Valmiki ji. So it kind of reinforces the basic narration, and the locations also prove that it was not mythology, it is history, and that was the original reason for the research and the book.
Right. And, the most interesting concept that you have introduced, or I have been introduced to, is reliving the past with present tense.
Right.
So what is it? And I want to know all about it.
Okay. So, when you read any scripture, Hindu scripture, they have very fascinating stories within a story. So, for example, in Vanvas, Yudhishthir ji was narrated Ramayana. Markandeya Rishi came and narrated a story. Then, at another instance, another Rishi narrated the story of Nal Damayanti. So, there are many fascinating stories. So, as the thought was that, if I write in the present tense, I'll give you one more prime reason. There are two prime reasons. If I write in the present tense, then I can refer to the stories of the past using the past tense. And coming to the other reason, which I think is more prominent in my thought, is that Brahma ji had given a vardhan to Valmiki ji कि जब तक सूर्य और चंद्रमा रहेंगे, your story will be alive. And if you recollect, he had also given a vardhan that when he sits in dhyan, he can relive all the events of Ramayana as if he's there on the scene. So that is how when he sat in dhyan, he could relive the events of Ramayana And what I was making a humble attempt with was that, if the reader can be teleported, or whatever the right word is, teleported into the past, and as if he's reliving the events, and he's feeling that he's right there with Sita ji or with Hanumanji or Sri Ram, and then that may, I thought, add more value to the story.
I think that is a very good way of communicating, actually, because when we see the purpose of Ram Leela, it is not that we want to see a play. It is what we can learn. So once audience is associated or deeply involved in the happenings or what is written, if they can visualize, they connect more with the concept.
Right.
So I think it is a wonderful thing. So
Thank you.
that brings me to the third question. That is, it is, I think we have read and know episodes of Sri Ram's life when Shabri, Kevat, and Nishad, they were given love and respect. So
Right.
jati was not what it is portrayed, or what how the discrimination part is. It was not there. So do have you included episodes related to this non-discriminatory attitude or discriminatory practices of Hinduism in our scriptures, like,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a very nice question. I think that is one of the other reasons why I think this scripture of Ramayana becomes very important. So, there are a series of events which portray that Varna or Jati was not important, it was just a convention. And this is also said in the Upanishads. So, for example, when Sri Ram was going out of Ayodhya for Vanvas with Sitaji and Lakshmanji, the Sarthi was Sumantra. And after they exited Ayodhya, they reached the banks of river Tamsa, and there he started doing his Sandhya Vandana because it was about dusk time. So Sut Putra, right? And we talk about Karna being discriminated against, which is so false. So a Sut Putra is also doing Sandhya Vandana. And if we go a little further in the past, then Shravan, uh, the story is very well known, but the interesting aspect is that Shravan's father was a Banya, that is a Vaishya, and his mother was a Shudra. And when he passed away, and before his uh, father gave a curse to Dashrath ji, his father said, "You will get the sin of killing a Brahman. Brahma Hatya ka shrap lagega." So he's calling a Vaishya and Shudra's son Brahman because of his activities. So of course, a Brahman does get a head start because of his karma in the past life. But what you do in the present is always given more preference in the scripture and as it actually happened. So coming to the other people that you mentioned, so Nishad Raj Guha, when they proceeded further and they reached the banks of Ganga at Sringverpur, so Sri Ram ji ke Param Mitra the, right? And after the war in Lanka and after they returned, while they were returning to Ayodhya, Sri Ram sends Hanumanji ahead of them, saying that please go and inform Nishad Raj Guha, who's a very good friend of mine, and Bharatji that I'm coming. So it is not like, Nishad Raj has helped me, so now the topic is over. So he did not forget favors. He had that attitude of gratitude in his mind. So that again shows that there was friendship and there was no unequal or equal. And when we talk of Shabri, everyone knows that, Juthe Bear ki story everyone knows. So the interesting aspect here, there are two interesting aspects. One is she was the disciple of Matang Rishi, right? So Matang Rishi in today's Matang Samaj is today's scheduled caste. So and he ate the half eaten berries of a lady who is a disciple of a scheduled caste, so called scheduled caste. And can you name any one person today from any jati who will do that? So that again shows that there was no discrimination, and Sri Ram did it because he saw pure bhakti in Shabri. So that is how he did it. So there are many such other examples also of Varna. The one very popular example is that of Shambhuk, which comes in Uttar Ramayana. And there, Shambhuk, if you know the story, I'll say it in brief. There was Ram Rajya, everything was prosperous, right? a father did not do the last cremation rites of his son, and people were happy, prosperous. So suddenly a young boy dies, and the father comes to the court and blames Sri Ram for it. And at that time, Naradji comes and says that because there is something wrong going on somewhere, this child died ahead of time. So at that point, he also says that as soon as that ritual is stopped, this boy can recover his life. So when Sri Ram set out in the four directions looking for the culprit, he did not know the Varna or Jati of Shambhu. So when he reached, after going in the three directions, when he reached south of the Vindhya, he saw a person who's hanging upside down on a tree doing an Asuri Yagna. And
Okay.
that is why he killed him. And the moment he killed him, the youth in Ayodhya revived and he gained his life. And if you recollect, Indrajit, who was also doing an Asuri Yagna, was killed by Lakshmanji. So
Right.
Indrajit is the grandson of a Brahman, right? Vishrav Rishike grandson. The. So if a Brahman's grandson can be killed for doing an Asuri Yagna, anyone else can also be. And Shambhuk was trying to reach heaven in his physical body. So even the great Harishchandra's father, Trishanku, could not reach heaven in a physical body. So there was a tussle between the Dev and Vishwamitraji. And today also he's hanging upside down as a constellation. So there are many such examples which we can refer to, which shows that Varna and Jati are just conventions. They are not discriminatory. But I don't want to take anything away from the discrimination that some people may have suffered. But it is not the fault of the scriptures. It is the fault of our interpretation of the scriptures which has caused that.
Right, right. And there is one, one anecdote on Putreshti Yagya,
Yes,
where you have mentioned that it was sage Vashisht who gave guidance to Raja King Dashrath that he should consider, he should treat all the people of all caste or varna
right.
equally and give
Yes.
them, make them happy, and there should not be any disrespect or deception.
Absolutely. And there's one more example which comes to my mind is
Mhm.
that in Skanda Puran, when they talk of the Jyotirling in Rameshwaram, the scripture clearly says that anyone who does the darshan of that Jyotirling in Rameshwaram, Ramnath Swami temple, with true devotion, will get the punya equivalent to reading the four Ved. So a person of any four varna could do the darshan and get the punya of reading the four Ved. So that is how our scriptures are.
Right, right. Uh, Now, let's go to the geography area.
Okay.
Uh, I think it is significant from the historical context. How do you establish the present location
So the
of it?
descriptions are very nicely given in Valmiki Ramayana,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
where they speak of the rivers and they speak of the. I think Chitrakoot is the obvious example, but to reach Chitrakoot, when Sri Ram, Sita ji, and Lakshmanji left Ayodhya, they crossed Tamsa Nadi, they crossed Gomti Nadi, and they reached the banks of Ganga, and then they reached the Triveni Sangam, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, which is Prayag. So the name Prayag is also mentioned, and then Valmiki ji very meticulously gives the description of the locations which were there. And then once they reach Bharadwaj Muni's ashram in Prayag, so the sage tells them, okay, you can go and establish your cottage 10 kos west of here at Chitrakoot. So even today, we have the Prachin name Prayag, which is now called Prayagraj. And even today, when we go west of Prayagraj, we come to the place of Chitrakoot. So like that, there are many locations which Valmiki ji has mentioned, and they match with current geography. So it is just a matter of reading the scripture very minutely and seeing what locations are being mentioned in what description, and then trying to
Um,
trace them. Yes.
yes, Gaurangji, I really actually want to know about Pushkar and its
Hmm.
relation with Sri Ram.
Okay. So
I've been to Pushkar, and when I went to the Tal, that Pushkar Tal, and I
Sarovar.
was, yeah, Sarovar, I was told that one place is like called Ram Ghat, something like that, and I was told that here Sri Ram, did his his father's Shraddh he did there. So I was amazed that Ayodhya and Pushkar, they are quite far, and in his life, Sri Ramji has traveled though. So Pushkar, what is the relation?
Okay. So this fascinating aspect is given in Garud Puran.
Okay.
So when they were in Panchwati during their exile period, they traveled to Pushkar, and Garud Puran gives this story. So they went there because they wanted to do Pindadan for as a mark of respect and gratitude towards the Pitru or the forefathers. So after the rituals were over, Sri Ram and Sita ji were feeding the Brahman because that's a part of our sacred process, and we get punya when we feed a true Brahman. So they were doing that, and while they were doing that, suddenly Sitaji runs away and hides behind a tree. So Sri Ram is confused, but he continues feeding and serving the Brahman. And after some time, after the process is over, he asks Sitaji, "Ke, Are kya hua? Why did you run away?" So she says, I saw three generations before you coming in an aerial Viman to accept the Pindadan, and they were wearing royal clothes and I was wearing soiled clothes, so I felt a little embarrassed, and that's why I hid behind a tree. So now this story beautifully highlights two things. One is that Pitru do come down if your devotion is true, and they do come down and accept the pind dan. So it is not a blind faith ritual that many people may discard today. It is a very genuine ritual. And secondly, it establishes that even the pitru can come down to accept the pindadan from a woman as well as a man. So there is no discrimination here also. And she saw three generations, which means she saw Dashrath, his father Aj, and then his father Raghu, which is how we get Raghav Kul, Raghukul or Raghav.
Right, right. And her own inhibitions, like because she was not, she doesn't want them to see her in that state.
Right.
So all this has several, good.
So there's one more thing. Sorry, I didn't
Mm.
want to interrupt. But in this context, since you asked about geography, and one may wonder if why probably they could have gone from Chitrakoot to Pushkar, but why are we saying that why am I saying that they went from Panchwati, which is Nashik in Maharashtra, to Pushkar?
Right,
It's
right.
because there is a very small, nice forest in the middle near Chittod in Rajasthan, and that forest even today is called Sita Mata Wildlife Sanctuary. And inside that forest, there is a Sita coop or a well, and there is also Valmiki ashram there. So, which means, if you look at the travel path between Pushkar and Panchwati, is this Chittod forest. So, it also proves that that was a likely path that they traveled.
Okay. And about that, why we feed crows to satisfy our ancestors. So what is the truth? And another thing that always comes up, like people who have a habit of criticizing that uh, Sita was abducted by Ravana, and she was Sita according to, but our scripture says that it was a Maya.
Correct.
So tell us about this crow and
Sure.
this
So,
Sita ji as Maya.
okay. So, the story of feeding the crow comes in Ramayana Uttarkhand. The
Mm.
story is like this, that there was a very illustrious thing called King Marut who was doing a yagna, and there were Brahman priests who were helping with the yagna. And while he was doing that, Ravan comes from the aerial path, and when he sees the yagna, he challenges. He had this habit of challenging people because he had this boon from Brahmaji. Of course, it didn't work against humans, but he challenges Marut Raja for a battle, and the king, obviously being a Kshatriya, he cannot deny uh, call to a battle, and he goes to fight. But his rishi, Samvarta, I think was the rishi's name. So rishi says that the yagna is halfway done, and if you go there, it will be inauspicious. So while this all this was happening, the demigods, that is the Dev, also were in attendance of the yagna. So the four Dev who were there, seeing Ravan, because Ravan has defeated all the Dev, right? So some demigods, they took different disguises, and Indra took the disguise of a peacock, Kuber took the disguise of a lizard, then Varun Dev took the disguise of a swan, and uh, one more. So I'll come to me. So these people took the disguises, and Yamraj took the disguise of a crow. That's sorry, the main thing. So all these people took all these demigods took different disguises, and after the whole skirmish was over, the verbal skirmish, and Ravan at that time, which is another interesting part, he not only disrupted the yagna, but he also ate a few of the Brahmins who were conducting the yagna, which proves that though he was a Brahman putra, he had more prominent Rakshas genes of his mother, Kaikasi, who incidentally was a hybrid descendant of a Rakshasi and a Pishachini called Yatudhan. So he disrupts the yagna, as I said, and ate few Brahmins and he left. And after he goes away, the four demigods they adopt their true forms. And for helping him, Indra gives a boon to the peacock that you will have 100 eyes because he's got 100 eyes on his body, and Kuber gives the boon of being able to camouflage himself like we know how a chameleon does. Then Varun Dev gives the boon to the swan of having spotless skin, and Yamraj gives the boon to the crow that anyone who feeds you will reach the people who are inhabitants of my planet, which is Yamlok. So that's the Pitru. Pitru resides in our Pitru reside in Yamlok, right? So that is why when we feed a crow, as per Yamrajji's blessings, it reaches our Pitru. And you can say, or one may wonder, okay, if I feed a crow, how does it find the right Pitru? So that also, I think one of the Upanishads or somewhere I've read that it says that just like a calf finds her mother in a crowd, the Pindadan also will find the right Pitru. So you should not worry about doing it. You should just feed the crow or do the Pindadan and it will reach the right Pitru. So that is the story behind the crow. And
I think
Boliye.
you have described it beautifully in your book as you are describing it now.
Okay.
So that we were talking about Sita ji as Maya.
Yes, sure.
Hmm.
So the story here is appearing in Devi Bhagavatam, in Vaman Puran, in Kurma Puran, and Brahma Vaivarta Puran. So these four scriptures mention the story of a daughter of a rishi called Kushadwaj, and her name is Vedvati. So she's doing tapasya to please Vishnuji and become his wife. And the locations are also described where all she did the tapasya. So the locations are she did tapasya at Pushkar, Gandhamadan, which is little beyond Badrinath of Uttarakhand today, and then also in Kurukshetra. And interestingly, there is a place in Kurukshetra called Balwanti village where there is a Vedvati Tirth, where it is believed that she did tapasya there. So while she was doing,
is it still there?
Yeah, it is still there. So I've been to Kurukshetra, but I could not reach this village. But I had the official government pamphlet, and there it is clearly highlighted that Balwanti Vedvati Tirth Balwanti village, and so is the second location. So what happens is at that point Ravan is flying in his aerial chariot, and he's a lustful Rakshas. So when he sees her, he comes down and he approaches her and he says, I'm so and so, and what are you doing? So she says, I'm doing tapasya to please Vishnuji. So the Ravan says, you drop that and you marry me. I have so much wealth and I blah blah blah. So she refuses, and when she does that, he catches hold of her with her hair. And when he does that, she transforms her hand into a sword and she cuts her hair, and she rushes in the fire and she jumps into a fire. And before rushing into the fire, she says, if I curse you, then I'll lose the merits of my tapasya, because when you do tap, then you are accumulating punya and good karma phal. But if I curse you, then I'll lose those merits. So I'm not going to curse you, but I will ensure that I become the cause of your downfall in my next birth. So this is indicated in the four scriptures I mentioned, and the location which I was referring to also is in the official Kurukshetra tourist map. Is called Vedvati Kund, and the village is called Sitamai village. So Vedvati and Sitamai, that's another interesting nomenclature. So that is why when Ravan kidnapped and Sita ji, if you remember, she went inside to get food. So this is my assumption that exchange between Sita ji and Maya Sita ji may have happened at the kitchen fire, or the Lakshman Rekha, which is the fiery line which Lakshman ji had drawn on the ground. So that exchange might have happened, and the scriptures are very clear also in a further aspect that Sita ji stayed under the protection of Agni Dev's wife Swaha.
Right,
And
right.
then the reverse exchange happened when she did Agni Pariksha after the war.
Okay, okay. So there is a cause and effect in every aspect of Ramayana.
Right.
It's not that, a make believe or myth kind of a thing. Now, like you have told us about Pushkar and place near Kurukshetra and all. So you have also mentioned Sri Lanka, and through Hanumanji, you have explained Sri Lanka. So give us a little, glimpses of that also. श्रीलंका के बारे में आप
Yeah,
मतलब
yeah, yeah,
whatever
sure.
you have
So I'm
explained in
thinking
the
where to
book.
start because the Sri Lanka
Hmm.
tourism websites, the tour
Yeah,
operators,
it has.
they list over 50 locations. So maybe
Hmm.
I'll try to go in a time sequence. So when
Hmm.
Ravan abducted Sita ji or Maya Sita ji and he landed his aerial chariot, he now this we are going as per the folklore. He landed his aerial chariot at a place called Veragan Tota, and Tota
Okay.
in Sinhalese means port. So,
Okay.
and he landed there, and the Sinhalese believe that there are five other such airports which Ravan had for his Pushpak Viman and aerial chariot. And next to Veragan Tota is a fort called Sita Kotua. Locals believe that Sita ji was held there, but the common knowledge is that we are told is that she was held in Ashok Vatika. So the locals believe that since Ravan was insecure, he took
Hmm.
her from Sita Kotua to a place north called Sigiriya, and then on the way back, he got her to Ashok Vatika, which is in present day Nuwara Ilia. But on the way back, he gave her some rice balls, and she refused to take any food from the wretched man, wretched Rakshas. So she threw the rice outside the chariot. And even today, there's a place called Sitaguli where this rice is considered to be very auspicious. And people there, local people there, store the rice as a sign of auspiciousness. So this is the background of Ravan and abduction of Sita. So when Hanumanji came there, and we can pick up the thread from Sundarkand, when he started looking, Chinmaya Mission has made a very beautiful temple there at a place called Ramboda. So that is the
Okay.
location supposed to be where Hanumanji started looking for Sitaji, and then he looked
Okay.
for Sitaji all over. And the place where he was, where Indrajit fired the Brahmastra, and we all know that Hanumanji, there's no effect on Hanumanji except for 48 minutes of Brahmastra. So that particular place is Mahaelia Thena, and this place even today nothing grows there because of the effect of radiation of Brahmastra. And then
Okay.
the place where he burned down Lanka, there's a place called Usangoda in Lanka, where even today nothing grows because the locals believe that Hanumanji flattened the place with the fire that he
Fire.
created to bring down
Hmm.
Lanka. And then, as we all know, he returned, and then Ram Setu Bana. And the connection of Ram Setu of Rameshwaram with Lanka is a place called Manar, northwest of Lanka. And then, there are different battlegrounds. So when the first time so Yuddha Ganava is one of the battleground, and there are others. I'll try and mention it with the story flow. So when the battle
Hmm.
proceeded, we all know that Hanumanji went to get Sanjeevani booty because both Sri Ram and Lakshmanji were injured. And when he got the Sanjeevani booty, it is believed that the place was Dolukanda, where the mountain was placed, and then he returned the Sanjeevani as per Valmiki Ramayana. And then the second time when Lakshmanji was injured through a Maya Astra that Ravana had fired, he again went to get another mountain, which is the Sanjeevi Booty. The first one was Sanjeevani.
That is, I think we have not heard of. Sanjeevani is the only, like, the only, it is, this episode is only mentioned wherever we
Correct.
have written, wherever we have heard or seen.
Right.
Uh,
Same here till I read Valmiki
hmm.
Ramayana, that portion. And, clearly there are two different incidents. So first incidents, as I mentioned, Sri Ram and Lakshmanji being injured with the Brahmastra. And second instance is where Lakshmanji was injured with the Maya Astra. That is when Sanjeevi Booty was got, and that location, the first location of Sanjeevani Booty, as we all know, is Dronagiri, and that is the mountain also is mentioned in the scripture, Gandhamadan. So as I said, it is north of Badrinath, and I've been fortunate enough to go for that small trek. There is a village
Hmm.
north
Mana.
of, yeah, not Mana. Mana is Vasudhara Falls and all that. But from
Okay.
Joshimath, there is a separate detour, and this goes
Okay.
towards the Tibet border. And there's a small
Hmm.
10, 12, 14 kilometer trek, and it goes to a village called Drunagiri. And even there today, people do not recite, when they recite Ramayana, but when they come to Hanumanji's part, they stop. And I was staying in a panchayat ke jo pramukh the homestay mein. I was staying in his house, so he told me this story. So it's authenticated by a local
Hmm.
type of a story. Anyway, coming back to the locations. So the location which I feel for the Sanjeevi Booty is probably the Western Ghats, and there is a Sanjeevi Hill even today in on the Tamil Nadu Kerala border. And the location mentioned in Valmiki Ramayana is the Mahoday Hill. So first one was Dronagiri, and this Sanjeevi Booty is Mahoday Hill. And from there, pieces of that mountain fell, and that could be Saturagiri in Tamil Nadu, and then there were other pieces which fell, and this one particular piece which fell, or where the mountain was placed, is Retigala. So even today Retigala is surrounded, it's north of central Lanka. So the location is such that Retigala is surrounded by a dry region, but on top of that small mountain there is always a cloud cover, like it is in the Western Ghats. So that is interesting part. And then the other places where this mountain may have been taken is Rumasala. And Rumasala is where the vegetation, some scientists have done the study, I found it online, where they've seen that the vegetation of Rumasala is exactly like that in the Western Ghats. So that mountain piece was kept there, and the reason why it was kept there is there are three battlefields here, which the
Okay.
locals believe the battle of Sri Ram was fought against Ravan: Sinigama, Hikkaduwa, and Dondra. So these are the three battlefields on the southwest coast of Sri Lanka. So these are the locations. And then when Kartik Swami came on earth to help Sri Ram,
Hmm.
there was a Brahmastra which was fired, and Kartik ji saved Sri Ram. So this location, it's in the southeast part of Lanka. It's called Kataragama. There is a fabulous Kartik Swami Mandir there, and even there today the soil outside the temple or in the surrounding region is red to indicate that use of the flaming weapon. So that again reinforces the other things. Lankagiri was where the scriptures say Ravan was staying, and the locals believe that was present day Lagala. And Sri Ram fired the fatal final Brahmastra on Ravan from a place called Dunuvila. So that place is still there. And Ravan's final cremation was done at a place called Yahangala. And then Sita ji gave her Agni Pariksha at Divrumpula. And locals believe even today that someone taking a vow at Divrumpula has to be honored. And before that Agni Pariksha, Vibhishan was made the king at a place called Kelania, which is present day Colombo. So
जी
these
जी.
are the different locations all over Sri Lanka where these incidents are believed to have happened.
Yes. Gaurang ji, you have explained about all the places within India when talking about Ramayana. And in your second book, Mahabharata, you have talked about the word. So tell us about this, geographical expanse of Bharat through your second book. How much it expanded, or was it the war period that involved all the, foreign people from foreign land, or the, intermixing, or some connection was already there before
Okay, so
the Mahabharata war?
two aspects. One is we all know that Yudhishthir ji did a Rajsuya Yagna to become the emperor of the world. And why I'm saying the world is because Vyas ji in the epic Mahabharata very beautifully describes literally hundreds of kingdoms which the four brothers conquered. They went in the four directions, and Bhim went to the east, Sadev ji went to the south, and Arjun ji went to the west. So, the first location which is mentioned is Pragjyotish. And in my book, I've proved that this Prag Jyotish is a place called Eridu in Iraq. And I've given a lot of similarities and explanations because there are two Prag Jyotish. The scriptures also say that the primary Prag Jyotish is in the east, which is Kamakhya Devi Temple, as we all know, Guwahati in Assam, which is also true. But there is another Prag Jyotish in the west, which even Ramayana says that because when Sugriv ji sent the Vanar in the four directions, when the team which went to the west also covered the location called Prag Jyotish. So the location is described as Sindhu, crossing Sindhu, then Balik, which is present day Afghanistan northern area, and then reaching Prag Jyotish, and then Astagiri, which means sunset. It probably means some part in Turkey. And then Mahabharata also repeats that Arjun went in the western direction, and when he went west, the first location he went was to face Narkasur's son Baghdad. So that is where he went, and then he covered other regions in the north. Madra. Then all the way he went. Madra is present day Punjab, because Madra's capital was Sakalkot, and then that is Sialkot of Punjab today, Pakistan's Punjab. And then he also went to the north, and the region he covered was a place called Darad. So now Darad is very fascinating. The expanse is very wide, and there are many locations which different historians identify as Darad. It starts from Kargil and Gilgit Baltistan, and it goes. Then I found three very interesting places which we can add to that list. One is a place called Dardak in Uzbekistan and Dardar in Tajikistan. And there is also a Dardestan region or province in Iran. So the expanse of the Darat people was also very wide. And then he went north and he went to the area of the Tukhar. Tukhar means, as per the current historians, it means the region of East Turkestan, which the Chinese have illegally occupied, and they call it Xinjiang now. So East Turkestan is very wide, and then he returned from Mansarovar back to Indraprasth. And Nakul's journey is also very fascinating. We should not discount his valor. He went all the way west, and it says he started from Rohtak, which is present day Rohtak of Haryana, who coincidentally is Harishchandra ji's son, after whom the city is found. And then he crossed the borders of Marubhumi, which is present day Rajasthan's western part. And then, going further, he reached the region of Sindhu, and Jayadratha was the king there at that time. So Jayadratha ruled three areas: Sindhu, Sovir, and Shibi. So Sovir, historians identify as Roar area of Sindh province, and Sindhu we all know is Sindh of Pakistan. And then Shibi, there is a place called Shibi in Balochistan. So these are the three regions which Jayadratha ruled, and then he went further west. And the most fascinating part is that he went to a place called Ramat. Now, when I looked at archaeological places further west from this location, I found that Jerusalem's old ancient name was Ramat.
Oh.
So, there is an archaeological site even today in Jerusalem which is called Ramat. And Bible mentions this place 2-3 times. Obviously, Ramayana was 3,100 plus years before
Yes.
that time, but he went to Ramat, and then he also went further west to a place called where the Berbers ruled. So Berbers are the present day Northern African people.
Right.
So this was the expanse. Now, to answer your question, before and after, so the four brothers went in the four directions to establish dharma, because dharma is the foundation of our society, and righteousness is the foundation of our society. So all these regions which I mentioned, all the kings either fought the war or they were subdued, and they accepted Yudhishthir as the emperor of the world. So when they did that, they of course came for the Rajsuya Yagna ceremony also. When after they did that, the description in Vyas Mahabharata is also very beautiful. It was almost like Ram Rajya. People were very happy. Crime rates had dropped. There was no robbery or theft. And the evil people who were earlier supported by the local chieftains or local Rajwada, they were all kept under control. Taxation was very fair. There was good rainfall, and there was ample crops everywhere. So the description is also very nice. So the idea of the Rajsuya Yagna was to establish dharma, which Yudhishthir was able to do across all these lands. And in the Rajsuya Yagna, the Chinese people were not allowed inside. So they had to wait outside because the Sabha was full. Maya Sabha was absolutely full. So the Romans, the scripture says Romak and Romaksh. दो बार mention होता है.
Mm-hmm.
So, anything, and it mentions it as a place beyond Yavan, which are the Turkic Greeks. So the Turkic Greeks were ones which were controlled by Baghdad and they were subdued by Arjun. So, when you talk of something beyond the Turkic Greeks and Romak, then, I'm assuming it has to be Romans. So Romaks and the Chinese were kept outside because there was no place to hold them inside. So this is the expanse of Vedic Dharma and how far it had spread. Now, coming to the war, all these people obviously took sides during the war. And, as we see today, that earlier we were told that it was just a war between two cousins. I mean, before that, we were told it was a myth, it never happened. Then they said, okay, it was a small war, दो cousins के बीच का लड़ाई था, it happened. And then, as things expand, now I'm convinced it was a global war of this proportion because महाभारत में clear उल्लेख है कौन कौन से kingdoms fought on whose side. Central Asia, there are at least half dozen kingdoms which are mentioned. Bali,
Right.
Kamboj, Shak, Khas, then Tukhar I already mentioned. So all these places fought. So that is why I call it a world war because the expanse was huge. And there were a lot of Rakshasas who were also involved in the battle. And Samsaptak Asurs. So we don't know the locations of these players. But since they were not part of India, I'm assuming they were also global players.
Right, right. I think you have also talked about Dharma, Arth, Kam, Moksha. Mahabharata is a shastra that emphasize that teaches Dharma, Arth, Kam, Karma, Moksha. So I think the second book also has a spiritual essence. So
So
how
yeah,
do
yeah,
you
yeah.
explain that?
Even the first book has the first book it is
Yes.
Yog Vasishta. It is the equivalent of what conversation Krishnaji had with Arjun. The same conversation Vasisht Muni had with Sri Ram before he went to the forest to help Vishwamitra ji. So that is Yog Vasishta. That also has a very spiritual aspect. It's called Maharamayana also. So I've tried to introduce the essence of Yog Vasishta because it's a very expansive, beautiful scripture. And the same thing in Mahabharata, the 12th and 13th books deal extensively with the spiritual aspects, specifically on that. The other aspects have spirituality scattered, but Shanti Parva and Anushashan Parva have a lot of spirituality mentioned. So that again I've tried to condense so as to make it easy for the reader. And
Yes, and I think you have made it through the stories, the untold stories, you have tried to convey the spiritual aspect of Hindu Dharma,
right,
which is based on Dharma, Arth, Kam, Moksha. So I think it will appeal to the younger generation also, who does not want to be, taught directly on आपको ये करना है, आपको ये नहीं करना है, ये गलत है या ये सही है. No, but when they know the reason and the soul behind it, or but the spirit behind it, why these things should not be done or these things should be done, so I think it will be easy for them to understand it and to enjoy it and to be proud of it. So
correct,
I think we can, I can sum up the discussion that this book, I think, will go a long way in connecting people to their history, divinity, and civilizational values. And I congratulate you, Gaurangji.
thank you,
This is a wonderful effort, and looking forward to some more of your certain these type of projects. And congratulations, all the best for future.
thank
And
you,
thank you once again.
thank you for your time and thank you for having me as a guest.
Thank you so much.
Namaste.
So, friends, if you like the episode, please like, share, and subscribe our YouTube channel. And Gaurangji, please, if you can tell us where these books are available.
Sure. Both the books are available on padegaindia.in, which is a local Indian company, as well as Amazon.in.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.